Welcome back, Crime Spies. I'm going to try this one more time. And if it doesn't work, I give up. Trying to get through all 3 of those subcommittee hearings from yesterday. Now I'm trying a different setting. So we will see what happens. I at this point, I'm not really sure. It was working fine. I mean, usually there's a problem here or there, but this past few days has been just terrible. Now I am going to find the window. Now, if for some reason I cannot get through this again, I do have the link in the description box underneath for the full committee hearing. So you can watch it at your leisure. Trying to find where we were. We were right around here, I believe. Oops, pause. All right. And also, I do want to remind you that, okay, so if I can't get through this and have more problems, then whatever I just fixed didn't work. But I do need to end this at 5 o'clock my time, so in about 2.5 hours, because David from MLS Making Law Simple on YouTube has a brand new Zachariah Anderson live stream starting. Apparently, he's got the footage for Zach Anderson and Sadie Beecham's interrogations. I got to find the link again for that too. So, say a prayer to the internet gods that perhaps I might have fixed it. Oh, Eris, you don't need to. I have a bot that does that. Or well, actually, Eris, considering I'm having such horrible internet connections, um, you don't need to do that today until I fix it. I have installed something on here that hopefully is gonna fix my issue, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes sense. This is, my attempt number 2. But I do appreciate you. Um, like I said, I've got yes, there, thank you. Yes, this I need. This. Thank you, Eris. That I do need. Thank you, Eris. I don't know what's going on. Everything was running swimmingly, and then just the last couple of weeks has been really challenging. And then so I don't know what it is. I don't think it's my router, and I don't have $500 $500 for a new 5G router. So, thank you. Yes, that's perfect. And, if what I just installed is gonna work, then I will tell you what I did. So if anybody else it's called YouTube. Oh, yeah. Actually, I think it's, what was happening yesterday at least. It's weird because sometimes there's, like, 12-hour live streams, not a hitch, no problems at all. And then, normally I use OBS, but, I was having problems in there yesterday too. The nice thing with OBS is it didn't seem to disconnect, but I was having to, like, stop and restart the browser every time. So, we'll see. Um, yeah, I don't know what it is. So then today I yeah, today yeah, I know. I can be in anybody's chat, and actually, it happened again yesterday where I was, like, live streaming yeah, I was live streaming the screen that said, "You are not connected to the internet." It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. Um, and like I said, Oh, and actually that's probably it too, because I had updates on all my Apple devices like 2 days ago. Then yesterday morning, this computer here is a PC, Windows 11 PC, and there was an update yesterday morning, and then after I think it was the first live stream that I did, I took a pause and I shut everything down because I like to shut everything down, clear out any cache or whatever, but just shut it off, restart it. And then I noticed when I restarted it, it had another Windows update. So there was two yesterday, two separate ones. So there's just updates going all over the place. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know if that's it, but like I said, I installed some other software. Hopefully that might work. And I was just reading some OBS chat rooms and they had suggested to try this. But it's weird because it doesn't seem like my live stream itself is cutting off, whether it's in the Restream Studio, which I don't like to use the Restream Studio. That's where I'm now. Very similar to StreamYard, but it runs on a cloud versus OBS runs on my PC, and my PC is just a screaming demon. Yeah, and it's yeah. So, I'm just trying to figure out why it's almost like the output is fine, but the input is what's goofy. So I was kind of thinking, and I maybe should have tried it here, but then like right before I ended earlier, Rumble also said no connection. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I thought, okay, well, I had quit for for today, and then when I was reading the chat rooms in the OBS studio, kind of explaining, looking for stuff that I was having, they suggested downloading some stuff. So I'll see if it works. I don't know. I don't know. It's like the internet disconnects, but it's not really disconnected. It's frustrating. Regardless. And yes, it is true. I can go on other people's chats. I can watch other people's live streams. Only thing I've had problems with in the last week or so on other people's live streams is once in a while there's two problems. Once in a while their audio all of a sudden just goes mute. And that fix is just to close YouTube and start again. And then the other one is the chat. It'll say top chat, and then some people, their chats aren't showing up. So then people are reminded, make sure to switch it to live chat and not top chat. Being here with you for part. Yeah. Yeah, I hate doing these in two parts because then you got to do new thumbnails for everything. It's just such a pain. And it's just been a really busy. Yesterday was 3 subcommittee hearings, one on impeachment of Mayorkas, and then the other 2 are the Hunter Biden contempt of Congress ones. And Mayorkas went through all the way. It might have had a few hiccups at the end, and I just reset the browser. That I was doing in OBS. But it's frustrating for me, and it's frustrating for everybody else. Yeah. Like I said, even in part 1 of this hearing that we're gonna resume this morning, even Rumble said there's no connection trying to reload. It was just weird. Very weird. And I don't really think it's necessarily the subcommittee hearings because I had that with the trials on occasion. Some 12-hour ones were no big deal. Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what this is. I mean, how am I supposed to now I'm finally getting some traction on YouTube. It'd be kinda nice to if I start a live stream to get all the way through it without saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to disconnect. Look for part 2, different link." Anyway, I appreciate you, and, I will cut off, in 2 hours and 20 minutes because I am very looking forward to watching David's, live stream tonight, and I'll redirect, the Rumble and the Kick crowds over as well. And actually, Eris, another gal here locally in Minneapolis, like a week and a half ago during the, one of the days of the Zachariah Anderson trial, it was really bad, and I took actually a day off, and she said she had the same thing, like, it was so bad she couldn't even work. Yeah, and I had StreamYard that I used, when I was using my MacBook, and, I mean, it was okay. I couldn't really set up OBS on a Mac because you have to download, like, Black Hole 2 channel to get the audio to come through, and it's kind of a pain. So when I got this new PC at the beginning of September, I just switched solely to OBS, and the only reason I have to use Restream is to redirect so that I can stream on 3 platforms at once, and Restream is very similar to StreamYard as far as, like, the setup. If you're in the studio like I am now, their studio's almost identical. But, StreamYard, I'd have problems because again, it's in the cloud, and my computer is so robust that I like using OBS. Plus, it's more you can tinker with it more. Although I think the audience is just so used to people using StreamYard, they kinda like, the chats and stuff being popped up, but, I'll figure it out. I appreciate you, Eris. And I do like my little bots, although I did copy and paste some of yours. So you might see one on occasion that's exactly verbatim what you put in here last week with your little emojis. They're so cute. So anyway, okay. Well, let's try to get through as much of this hearing as possible. And like I said, if what I've added here doesn't work, then now I know. But if it does work, I'll tell you what I did. How's that? Maybe I found a workaround. Everything happens for a reason, they say. All right, let's see. We're gonna play this. Oops. We're gonna play this at. We're gonna try to do 1.5. Bella Italia, hello. How are you? Oh my goodness, that picture. Oh, look at how cute. Baby Sophia, her face is behind the YouTube thing. Oh, look at how sweet. Little baby. Okay, I'm sure most of you probably don't want to listen to this because there's a lot of screaming and we got to do it at fast speed. But I do want to get it done. Tomorrow, the plan was to watch the 2 subcommittee hearings that are going on today. And one is in relation to the illegal immigrants' effect on Social Security, and the other one is the progressive ideologies being pushed and affecting our U.S. military. But those are going to have to wait now till tomorrow. I do love emojis. I worked as a finance manager, accountant slash payroll doodad person for software IT companies, predominantly like QA, quality assurance, staffing companies. And so those were all S Corps. So, less than a couple hundred employees. And I worked directly for the presidents. And one of the ladies I worked for over the years, uh, she was one that she liked to use emojis, which normally she was like the person that everybody was afraid of, but she was an emoji user too. I don't know. I'm a compulsive emoji user. But as an accountant, we do like our highlighters and colored pens. So maybe it's I don't know. All right. Well, let's try to get through as much of this as we can. We got 2 hours and 15 minutes, and then we're gonna go move on over to MLS that Eris was so kind to put here, and I will copy and paste it. Oh, yeah, all of our administrative assistants, same thing. They were doing everything. Severely underpaid. Yeah, yeah, our AAs, they were like, "Receptionist, answer the phones, redirect the phones, get the mail, go get the stamps, go get the snacks for the office." I mean, for Pete's sakes. And then they'd always say, "Oh, well, if you need help with this, just ask Lisa." Okay, well, Lisa's already busy. She's got plenty to do out there. I don't need it's just terrible. Terrible, terrible. Underpayment for reals. Actually, if you're like the only accounting slash payroll slash HR person for a small S corp, it kind of sucks too because you got to run all the financials and pay all the bills and do all the payroll and ugh. I kind of like working for larger companies with a smaller responsibility. Alrighty. Okay, so here we go again. Take 2.
Talk a little bit about what this report shows, because it's actual receipts from.
I mean, everybody so far to this point, by the way, has been screaming. I might put it at 1.25. We might have to do this in 3 parts. Take your Imitrex if you got it. Eris, make sure to check out that amitriptyline. Oh, that's what it is. It's amitriptyline, not nortriptyline. I gave you the wrong one. Nortriptyline was the first one. Amitriptyline is the Oh, this is spicy. Amitriptyline is the more pure form of nortriptyline. I misadvised you yesterday. I should have looked on the bottle. I will revise. All right, brace yourself. I moved her down to 1.25 because really they have been screaming. And you actually, right before it cut off, 2 persons before Miss Stansberry here was AOC. So at least you missed out on her.
Foreign governments who spent $7.8 million at Trump properties during his presidency while they were actively seeking to.
Okay, so for those of you who started watching Crime Spies during the Zachariah Anderson injustice trial, remember how we had tells for Dingleberry? Well, for those of you that might not always watch these House subcommittee hearings, there's always, it's amitriptyline. It's a prophylactic for migraines. And it takes a while. So if they give you that and you got to start at 10 milligrams, work up to 30 milligrams, you take it at night because it does have kind of some sedative. Not much though. I mean, I don't really notice a difference helping me fall asleep, but I seem to stay asleep longer. And then you got to, move up to 20 and then 30. And you don't need much of it. It's cheap and then make sure they give you Imitrex at the same time. And I think I said in my message yesterday, Imitrex is only for migraines and cluster headaches. And when my medical doctor first put me on nortriptyline with the Imitrex, I was taking all 8 of those Imitrex per month. But I mean, I was getting a headache like every day prior to that anyway. And then my other doctor, when I told her, "Oh, I started these, nortriptyline and the Imitrex," then that's when she said, "Oh, well, here, let's switch that to amitriptyline. It's a more pure form of the active ingredient in nortriptyline." Anyway, yes, and Bella's in the pharmaceutical industry. It doesn't really make me drowsy, but it is a prophylactic for migraines. So now it's been, I think, like 15 months and on amitriptyline 30 milligrams at night. Now I'm only getting a headache like 3 or 4 times a month, and it's usually like right in a row. But like I said, I used to have a headache every day, and I just thought, "Oh, these are just really bad headaches." Turns out they were migraines this whole entire years. So hopefully that helps you. Imitrex is expensive. The generic is also expensive. A couple of my daughters tried mine, and now they have their own prescriptions, but the amitriptyline is very cheap, generic version. I should do a separate one on that.
To influence foreign policy and decisions.
Oh, so what I was saying before, sorry, is in these House committee meetings now, yeah, it's oh my God, it's like now if I could just figure out my back, that would be wonderful. But at least I don't have my back and a headache every day. um, but with the subcommittee hearing, there's always like a tell on their side, on the other side. And the same was true for, the two preceding sessions of Congress when the GOP was in the minority. So this one is GOP majority, and the minority continues to deflect from the situation at hand, which is whether or not to hold Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress. Him going in to the hearing yesterday and then leaving was in part one of this that I attempted this morning. He wasn't there very long, and then come to find out that one of the representatives from Tennessee was on News Nation yesterday and had said that Hunter Biden is filming a documentary. So I'm pretty sure everything that you saw, the little clips of that yesterday, was all part of some kind of documentary that he's filming. There's big film crew in there and lots of cameras and stuff. But again, I wanted to get through this hearing because I've watched these hearings for years. I've been live streaming them on Rumble ever since I started my channel as much as I can in between all the trials. And out of a whim, I decided to try it on YouTube yesterday and was really pleased that people from both sides of the aisle were sticking around to watch. So, this isn't if you're on a different political aisle than I am, I was really pleased to see that people were sticking around to hear this. I don't think a lot of people watch these, and I can tell you that when these subcommittee hearings do live stream these, they turn the comments off, so there's no way for people to talk about them. I have noticed Right Side Broadcasting has started recently live streaming these, so that's good. But, this is where I find all my information is watching these hearings. But this one is really cringe. I don't blame you if you wanna leave. The link is in the description box below for the raw footage.
By the administration.
Will the gentlelady yield to the question?
Let's talk about some of the receipts that are in here. Malaysia, over $250,000 was spent by representatives of Malaysia while their ex-president was being investigated for a massive corruption scheme and which Trump's
So, part 1 of this that we watched this morning, what they're doing every time, because each side gets 5 minutes to talk and yell in this particular I've seen some pretty contentious ones. This one's really bad. But what they're doing is every time it's their turn to talk, they're like, "Why are we doing this with Hunter Biden? Why aren't we talking about President Trump? He made all this money with his hotels while he was while he was president." And even Toodley Pip, who is from the UK, hopped in and said, this was in one of the ones yesterday where they brought that up. Today, they're really hammering it home. And she said, well, President Trump, when he was in office, he donated his salary to charity. And for those of you who are aware of that, every quarter he was obligated to take $1, and then he would have a very short little press conference where he would say, "Okay, now we're going to give this, check to Folds of Honor or whatever." Um, and then he would take $1. So in his whole presidency, 4 years, he took $16 and donated all 4 years to charity. but now what they're doing is they're forgetting to mention that, although one of the GOP members in this morning had said, reminded people, well, he didn't take a salary. He donated it. But what they're doing on the Democrat side is they're repetitively saying he made all this money, foreign influence money, from his hotels all over the world over the course of his presidency. Well, he was required to sign the business over while he was president to his sons. They're basically implying that all the money that the Trump hotels and golf courses and club country clubs, etc., should have basically shut down for 4 years. That's what they're implying. That's where they're going with this. And so that any money that was brought in from the hotels during the 4 years was foreign influence money. That's where they're going with this. I swear we're going to have to.
Fundraiser was indicted for illegally lobbying on Saudi Arabia. Tens of thousands of dollars spent by the Saudi government and by the Crown Prince and his staff.
Do you yield to a question?
Later give $2 billion.
And another thing, for those of you who have watched these subcommittee hearings over the last probably 5-ish years, the GOP has been in the majority for about a year now, but the preceding 2 sessions, so 4 years, when the Democrats were the majority, all they did was, try to impeach the orange mean tweeter. So I just find it very hypocritical because I've listened to these for so many years that their tune is totally changed.
To Jared Kushner's private firm. Qatar, tens of thousands of dollars spent by Qatar.
And if you're crocheting, I'm going to try to finish my hat I started yesterday. I do have a playlist on my YouTube channel, and I'm just trying to park some things in there. If you're brand new to crochet, pick up either a J hook or a K hook. So 6 millimeter or 6.5 millimeter, and some number 4 medium weight yarn. Don't pick up cotton yarn when you're first learning to crochet. And there is a cowl. She shows that it's kind of like folded over. It looks like a turtleneck kind of. Start with that one. That one's really good. I'm actually going to make another one of those to go with this hat when I'm done. Oh, see, Eris, you can knit and crochet. Yesterday we were talking, people are like, I can knit, I can't crochet. And other people is like, I can crochet, I can't knit. I've tried knitting and I'm not coordinated. June, she knits, and there was somebody else that knits too. Yeah, don't get the blanket yarn. Just get like a number 4 acrylic simple yarn when you first start out. They make what is this called? Yeah, don't get anything fancy until you've mastered it. There's a fairly new one I got. It's like I forget what it's called. It's like jewel tone, but it kind of shreds. So you want a soft yet inexpensive acrylic-ish type yarn. Nothing fancy when you first start. Yeah, infinity scarf. Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's just I like it a little bit tighter just because, here in Minnesota, we don't want to if we go outside, we like it kind of snug. Okay. Oh, and if you're brand new, I bought these for the kids when they were little and my sister. These knitting looms, there's like a little hook that goes with it. And this, you can get kind of that like ribbed look like you get with knitting. Although I figured out how to do that in crochet. Okay, well, here.
During what was described as a charming offensive and an arms sale to the government of Qatar by the Trump administration. Kazakhstan, thousands of dollars spent by the president of Kazakhstan on a controversial visit which raised questions about human rights violations, business dealings, and a money laundering scheme involving Donald Trump's properties in New York. So my question is, if the GOP actually cares about criminal activity, how about they investigate the receipts that we have right here?
Can I answer that question?
Of influence peddling by Donald Trump and a man who is currently facing trial
I mean,
in
I've
4
seen some
jurisdictions
spicy
on 91
hearings,
counts of criminal
but
activity,
this one takes
who's
the
been
cake.
twice impeached by this body and is currently trying to run for president again. And
I would love to answer your question.
Of this committee has already endorsed.
I mean, the
This
women are
is
hysterical,
not
the men are
factually
hysterical.
based. This is a farce, this is a political stunt, and it is designed to help Donald Trump secure the nomination this November.
Will you yield to a question?
So let's call it what it is. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield my time back to the chair.
4 seconds.
4 seconds, 3, 2, all right, time's expired.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous
Wilfram.
consent to enter information for the record.
What's the information?
Oh, my God.
State the information.
Thank you.
I reserve the right to
I
object.
downloaded some different software.
The minority has not provided a copy of
Let's
the
see
material
if
for
I
the
can
record. In the
manage
past,
to
she's
have a whole
displayed
live stream
pornography. Is
without-
pornography allowed to be, or pornographic photos allowed
without-
to be displayed in this committee room, Mr. Chairman?
It's not pornography.
Okay, well, you're the expert. I'll how do you?
I'm not an expert, Mr.
Seems
Raskin.
like it.
Mr. Chairman, I object to the
this
unanimous
is,
consent
Mr. Chairman,
request.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
object.
Hold on,
All
hold
you
on.
need is one objection.
We need decorum. I'm gonna let the lady state, and then if you object still, we'll go from there.
Mr. Chairman, don't we have the opportunity to review the material before
I
it's
reclaim my
provided?
time. I reclaim my time. Mr. Chair, I reclaim my time. I'd like to enter for the record an excerpt from a bank statement.
there's a
a bank
objection,
statement that's
Mr. Chairman.
public in regards
object?
to Hunter
Eli,
Biden
hello.
and
Mr.
his
Has already
bank accounts, in his payments.
Mr. Chairman, I object to
Okay.
the styrofoam board. It's not a
Reclaiming
document.
order, reclaiming order, reclaiming order. We'll,
Clearly, Democrats today don't want the truth to come out.
Mr. Chairman,
But
this just
I-
means that
I would
any
like to
member will
enter
be able
for the
to add to
record-
their 5 minutes by putting on a display of
Mr.
placards.
Chairman, I'd like to enter for the record
I think
a
all
Chairman, I-
statement from
I
a
bet.
bank report that shows
Can we
proof
get some order
of
here?
Hunter
Mr.
Biden's
Chairman,
bank account
where are we in
and
the-
human
all right,
resources.
okay. Let's hold off on this. There's several objections. We're gonna talk staffs between each other, and then we'll go from there. But I understand, I think what you're saying is from the laptop.
Someone on this committee accused me of revenge porn, and I have a right to respond to that, and I'd like to enter.
But within the rules of the
evidence
committee,
don't.
everyone.
For the
Mr. Chairman,
record, this is important evidence for the record, and it pertains to our investigation into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. This comes
So
from
do it behind closed doors like you do
It's
it.
Objection.
It doesn't appear to be bad, but you ought to.
but Mr. Chairman, she's got
What's the
9
relevance
placards
of
there.
it?
Does she get an additional 5
But
minutes or 10 minutes?
I don't understand how any of you who
Maybe if you would
support
shut
the
up,
What's the order?
generalization
Okay.
of children
We're
and
gonna
drag queens
we're
showing
gonna
their
we're
body
gonna
parts at
reclaim
parades
order here.
are
We'll
offended.
suspend and let the staff discuss the evidence from the laptop being entered
You
into
see
the
why I
record.
wanted to watch the
Chair
rest
now
of
recognizes
this.
Fallon from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so
Oh, okay. Hold on. We suspend, so we need to stop for a moment. Okay. hold
Oh,
on.
you guys are funny. Grab your
Discuss.
crochet.
We'll go.
Grab your crochet. Jamie, I got your address. Now I just got to put your hat in an envelope.
You don't get a speech to UC.
Now, about 2 or 3 months ago, Marjorie Taylor Greene started showing some pictures in one of the hearings from the Hunter Biden laptop. That was really great. They're like, I object. It was awesome. Oh, goodness. Well, let's see if we can get through this without problems. And if we can, this will make me happy. I'm like, well, maybe I should just, count my losses for today. And then I thought, well, I got to test it somehow. And I wanted to watch the rest of this hearing. Jamie, is that trial done that you and Baker were doing? I thought right before I started here, you were just winding down on that. So far, part 1 of this was all screams. Hunter Biden showed up. He stayed for just a little bit longer, or like they say he stayed for a half an hour. There's no way.
Texas for 5 minutes.
thank you, Mr.
He stayed like 15 minutes, if that. And we were watching in one-ish, 1.25, 1.5 times speed, and then left. Then come to find out, he's filming a documentary. So,
Mr. Chairman, you have to acknowledge that there's a concentrated effort to deflect and distract, and this is not about January 6th, and
reals,
unfortunately
you
for the
were?
Democrats, it's not about Donald Trump. This is about Biden family corruption, plain and simple. And what really gets me is from just an individual and from an American to being an American is the fact that I disagree vehemently with most of our friends across the aisle when it comes to politics. I will submit that most folks that serve in Congress, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, are not corrupt. They're not on the make. They're not trying to enrich themselves. Hunter Biden is. The Biden family was. And so to sit here and defend a fella that doesn't merit that kind of defense is just interesting, and quite frankly, I find it sad as well. And I think he's a coward to come in here with this stunt, again, because, you know, you can define someone that's all about themselves by the way in which they act, and he clearly does that. That's what we're here to discuss. So let's talk about the process, because we've been told that, hey, he was here, he's ready to testify, just let him testify. For the American people, to make it very clear and digestible, when you are deposed in Congress, the majority gets an hour and the minority gets an hour, and it can go on indefinitely. So what usually happens is you can get 100 hours of questions in. You can go drill down. You can get into the efficacy of the procedure because you can go in depth, and you can hold whoever is the witness to account. If we have just public testimony, what happens here is we all get 5 minutes. Times roughly about 60 equals 300. Doing the math without a calculator, that's 5 hours. So instead of hundreds of hours, you only get 5. And witnesses are very good with their counsel to deflect and distract and answer really slowly, etc. That's why this is about procedure. 100 hours, 200 hours, and then we can come in to public testimony and ask questions about what we have read and make that public. So what I would have loved to, he was here, he left, unfortunately, because I would have loved to at least ask questions while he's in the room for the first time. I've never laid naked eyes on the man until just now. But I would have loved to have asked certain questions like, why did he feel special that he could evade paying taxes on millions of dollars of income? Why doesn't he pay it back? I know a lot of it is already outside of the statute of limitations, so he can't be prosecuted for it, but he can certainly still pay it back. That's a moral obligation that any American has. I'd like to ask him what he did, his company did to earn in quotes, $3 million from Yelena Baturina, who was married to a corrupt oligarch who used to be the mayor of Moscow. What did he do to have Kenish Razhikev from Kazakhstan wire him $142,300? The very next day he bought a Porsche. What did he do for Mr. Razhikev? What did he do? Did he get bribed, naked bribe of $5 million by Mykola Zlochevsky? And did he have any experience in the energy sector prior to his father becoming vice president, because Zlochevsky paid him $1 million a year? Interestingly enough, the CFO of Burisma, Vadim Pozharsky, had dinner after he paid Hunter Biden millions of dollars, had dinner with his then sitting vice president dad at Cafe Milano. Did that happen? Because it seems like it did. Did Kenish Razhikev, who gave him, but essentially bought him the Porsche, he also had dinner with his dad. And yes, coincidentally, Yelena Baturina as well had dinner with his sitting vice president father at the time. Who I would also like to have asked him, having been an entrepreneur business person myself, why create 30 shell companies if you have a legitimate business? What did your business do? What services did they provide? What goods did they sell? Who pockets seed money? I have never met anybody in business that pocketed seed money. It's the lifeblood of your venture. Why did you take millions from foreign entities? And who was the big guy? Mr. Hunter Biden, was it your dad? 10% for the big guy? When you said in that WhatsApp message that I'm sitting right here with my father, was your father really there? Will you give up your geolocations on your phone with your dad so we can determine if you guys were actually in the same room at that time? Why did you email your daughter or text her and tell her about, boy, I wish I didn't have to give 50% of my salary to dad? This all is just questions that under a deposition, when we have hundreds of hours, we could ask this. And I'm only one member of a committee of 60. I'm sure my colleagues would have plenty of questions as well. So this is what it's about. It's about justice. And think about who you're defending here. He's not worthy of your defense. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. The chair recognizes Mr. Lynch for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will agree with my friend and colleague, the gentleman from Texas, that this is a sad day, but perhaps sad for different reasons. This whole process has become such a sham. The underlying purpose at the beginning of these hearings was that, as was the title of one of the first hearings we had, a hearing on the basis for an impeachment inquiry against President Joseph R. Biden. And at that hearing, the Republicans and the Democrats had an opportunity to bring witnesses forward that would actually provide evidence to the committee so that we could make a decision to substantiate or to undermine the call for an impeachment. And we sat in this hearing, and the Republicans brought their witnesses in, and I had to admit, witnesses that had considerable experience and expertise and impressive resumes. And so we asked them, so this was the big moment. We asked these expert witnesses that the Republicans had brought in, are there any basis or underpinnings that would warrant an impeachment inquiry at this point? And these witnesses had reviewed almost all of the 14,000 documents that have been provided, transaction reports, Treasury reports, and I'll give you the answers. These are the Republican witnesses. This is Jonathan Turley and I think Bruce Dubinsky was a consultant.
Oh, they pulled this in the
One
other hearing
witness said,
yesterday.
and I quote him, he did not believe that any of the current evidence would support articles of an impeachment, close quote. That's the Republican witness that you had your moment. You had your moment to bring in the witnesses.
Would the
that were
gentleman
gonna-
yield?
No, I will not yield. I will not yield. The other witness that the Republicans brought forward against President Biden, he said under questioning, he had no basis to even suggest that there was corruption, fraud, or any wrongdoing on the part of the president. Now, we are all familiar with Hunter Biden's, his conduct. There have been explanations of his drug addiction that have been widely publicized, something that maybe a few families of members of this committee might be familiar with, when people go sideways because they're addicted to drugs. But the very moment to pursue the underlying purpose of these hearings has been completely diverted. There's been no evidence brought forward against the President of the United States. And as to this witness coming here today, or his reluctance to submit himself to private investigations, can be, I think, credibly explained given the lack of trust out of these hearings. There have been story after story about leaks coming from those private interviews. Blatant misinformation and disinformation that the chairman and other members of the committee have offered to the press. So-called bombshells, that's what it was on Fox TV, bombshells, turned out to be a dud, turned out to be completely false. But under the auspices of this committee, those members, including the chairman, put out these stories in the press because they could not be refuted. They were not subject to cross-examination. They were not provided for or provided by any credible witness. That was just made up in the minds of the chairman of those members. That's why this gentleman wanted to testify in public, so someone could not distort his statements and leak them wrongfully to the press. The chairman.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Luna for 5 minutes.
This contempt proceeding is about upholding the rule of law. You know, with recently what happened with Jeffrey Epstein and the client list, we can see that many rich and powerful people, to include people in Washington, were held above the law, and that is simply not fair. Interestingly enough, though, one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, Virginia Giuffre, actually vindicated Trump. What you'll notice is that the media did not want to cover that, but why is that? It's because it will show a double standard that exists within our justice system, and also the media bias against those, especially Republicans.
I just want to mention, I think I know where she's going with this. So everybody, and even some documentaries I've watched about Epstein, just watch now. I can talk freely over on Rumble. I'm kind of petrified over on YouTube, but if it's not a trial. But, over the years, they continue to say, oh, well, look, he took a flight. Well, okay, here's the real story, and you can fact check this. Donald Trump did take one of Epstein's planes. It might have even been the Lolita Express. He was in Palm. Jeffrey Epstein and Trump both swam in the same social circles. They're both from Queens, or grew up in Queens, and they both had large estates in Palm Beach. Of course, they're going to be and Donald Trump has had Mar-a-Lago, which is a public or private, it's a private country club. But what they forget to tell, so the whole thing with him being on that one flight from Palm Beach up to New York, his Trump airplane was grounded because it was having mechanical problems. Epstein happened to be leaving at the same time, also heading to New York. Trump had to go to a meeting, so he hopped on the plane. Once. That was it. That's the story. So do with that information what you will. Also, the second thing is, I forget what year it was, that Epstein was brought up on charges, did plead guilty to some minor sweetheart deal thing. That was when he was in prison for, I forget, like a year, but he was given he was able to leave during the day and come back at night. My point is, that all stemmed from Epstein and some coat check girl at Mar-a-Lago, to which once Trump got caught wind of it, kicked him out, and then permanently banned him from Mar-a-Lago, then cooperated with Palm Beach authorities. And the whole reason he was actually brought up on, or actually was convicted or pled guilty to the lesser offense, was because Donald Trump was the only one that cooperated to give them information. So I take no, I think that's where she's going with this, I guess is what I'm saying. Some of you may know
and
that
conservatives
already, but
that are simply not guilty of what they are accusing us of. So I just want to put this in perspective. The reason we are doing this today is because Hunter Biden failed to comply with our subpoena. Hunter Biden, I don't care about his drug addiction. Yes, you are. Many of us have experienced some of these awful things impacting our family, but that doesn't mean that Hunter Biden gets a pass or that we should feel any sympathy for him breaking the law. I want to just point to behind me, U.S. Code 192, a refusal of a witness to testify or produce papers. It means that you should be, one, subject to a misdemeanor, a fine up to $1,000, and anywhere from 1 to 12 months in prison. For your average American that doesn't have the connections that Hunter Biden has, this is what you face. So I want to just point out that when my colleague, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, says we must comply with the law, I agree with you. When Ranking Member Raskin pointed out that that Donald Trump's allies should be held and we should not tolerate these contemptuous violations of the rule of law, I agree with that. But then let's use these exact same standards against their own. Frankly, I think that as of right now, there is a double standard that exists. We have to hold him accountable. He broke the law. He will be held accountable, and that's exactly why I'm supporting this contempt proceeding. Thank you.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Tlaib for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to yield to our ranking member, but before I do, I just, after coming back and being in our districts for so long, no one is asking me about this. They can't pay their bills. There is a lot of cost of living struggle all over our districts, and I just wish we would use this committee to talk about those issues. I mean, even on having the Sadler folks in here and talking about that, the cost of insulin. I mean, Mr. Chair, I would love to work with you in a bipartisan way to talk about those issues that I think really there's responsibility.
one thing, they brought this up also in yesterday's other contempt of Congress hearing. They brought up the cost of prescription drugs. Okay, so that's another one of their deflections or tells, if you will, with respect to holding Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress. There is a subcommittee hearing that was from a couple months ago. I'll try to find the link. I got to add it to the list. About the pharmaceutical industry. And I would encourage you watch it. You don't have to necessarily watch my live stream of it, but I'll just find just the uncommentary version. I'll find it. I gotta find my pen. Which, I mean, I know the Imitrex brand shots that I have, they're $300 a piece. $300 a piece. It's $17.59 for 6 Imitrex shots, 6 headaches. And that subcommittee hearing basically explains why. It's a joke. Oh, and the other thing that they're going to probably bring up in this hearing, because they brought it up in yesterday or in the House Judiciary one, is the government is ready to run out of money. They're going to shut down. That's another deflection.
Stability all over the place in regards to the fact that so many of our American residents and communities across the country are struggling. With that, I yield to our ranking member, Raskin.
Thank you, Ms. Tlaib, for your tremendous and enduring devotion to your constituents and the public good of all Americans. Why are we here, colleagues? Well, between January of 2017 and January of 2021, we suffered the most lawless presidency of our lifetime. It began by Donald Trump saying that he would keep his more than 500 businesses going. That's right, and he wouldn't divest himself of any of those businesses, and he would not adopt a rule in honor of the emoluments clause, consistent with the emoluments clause, declining to take money from Saudi Arabia, China, United Arab Emirates, and
See,
so on.
there
And
they
they
go
proceeded,
again.
as we've learned, to collect at least $7.8 million from foreign governments, and that's actually a tiny fraction of what he got, because that was only for the first 2 years before the chairman, in his wisdom, decided to tell Mazars to stop complying with a judicial court order. And so that was all we got, was 2 years for 4 businesses out of more than 500, and that was just for 20 countries out of 195 countries on earth. But the lawlessness lasted up until yesterday, when Donald Trump's lawyer got up before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and asserted that President Trump, or any other president for that matter, has a right to order assassinations of his political opponents and not be prosecuted for it unless he's impeached and convicted first, which is...
Okay, that's also bullshit. Dan Bongino's show yesterday, which I just dropped the link for a rule forum, because this hearing was from yesterday. Dan Bongino's show yesterday, he just, like, the first 5 minutes, he, like, goes off on Hunter Biden coming into this committee hearing and then leaving. So I haven't had a chance to watch the Dan Bongino show today, but it's definitely worth a watch. The first 5 minutes.
completely at
I'm
odds
sure today is going to be fire.
with the text of the Constitution, the history of the Constitution, but he asserted a right to assassinate other citizens.
Oh, and I was going to mention in yesterday's Dan Bongino show, I don't know if it's like story number 2 or 3. There's a video floating around of journalists talking about assassinating POTUS 45, saying, "Oh yeah, maybe they should just JFK him and say, Mr. President, it's such a lovely day. Why don't you take a convertible?" That clip is on Dan Bongino's show from yesterday too.
Unless first he's impeached or convicted, which means all you got to do is kill your political opponents and then kill enough of your political opponents in the House and Senate to keep yourself from being impeached or convicted. My friends, please don't look at your phones and papers right now. This goes to the heart of the republic. Take a position on it. Even if you're going to support it, take a position on it. Don't stick your heads in the sand. Donald Trump is doing this to our country. He's asserting the right of the president to murder people and not be prosecuted for it. Well, so why are we here? Well, Donald Trump insisted to numerous Republicans and in public and on Twitter and on Truth Social that Joe Biden be impeached. Why? Well, because Donald Trump was impeached twice. The last time for inciting a violent insurrection against his own vice president, against the Congress of the United States to overthrow an election. And if you don't believe that, you've got to tell me that if Mike Pence had buckled under to weeks and months of pressure, that Donald Trump would have said, "Oh no, I was just kidding. I'm not actually going to seize the presidency." Come on. If you believe that, you're too innocent to be let out of the House by yourself. So anyway, Donald Trump says, "I don't want to be the only one running for president who's been impeached. Impeach Joe Biden. Figure out something. We were here for a year. You guys did not lay a glove on Joe Biden. You don't have a single credible piece of evidence, not one iota, showing any crime by Joe Biden." As Mr. Lynch says, even your own witnesses came up and said they didn't see it at the one hearing that you had on impeachment. So why are we here? Well, we can't go after Joe Biden. He's clean. Let's go after Hunter Biden. Let's go get him. And that's why I'm so suspicious of where we are today, Mr. Chairman, because I heard you numerous times say, come before the committee, come and testify before the world, come and tell everybody what happened. And he took you up on it. And he said, yes. And I said, finally, we'll get to hear from Hunter Biden. We'll get to hear answers to all those questions Mr. Fallon posed. But then you wouldn't take yes for an answer. You said, no, we want to go to a back room and do it there, and then we will leak out appropriate details, which of course we have seen has allowed for radical distortions of people's testimony before this committee. You have not released the vast majority of transcribed interviews that have been in the back room so we can leak out specific details. So that's not right. That's why we have questions about it. But I'm with Ms. Mace. Let's bring them all in. Let's bring in all the Republicans who still haven't testified about what they know about what happened on January 6th, and let's bring Hunter Biden in. Let's do that all together. I'd be for that. And thank you for yielding, Mr. Lieben. I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Langworthy for 5 minutes.
Well, we certainly had enough distractions here today in the political stunt that we saw here at the beginning of this hearing.
Secret squirrel,
Hunter
welcome.
Biden strutting in here
Thank you
like a
so
real tough
much.
guy while he refused to sit for a deposition that he'd been lawfully subpoenaed to do. It must be embarrassing to have to defend all of this. And we certainly have Trump derangement syndrome on display in a big way in this chamber today.
Yep.
Over the last year, the Oversight Committee has
That
uncovered a
orange mean
plethora
tweeter.
of evidence that is directly pointing at the corruption from Joe Biden and his family. This level of corruption is what you'd expect to see in a third world country, not the United States of America. If the volume of evidence was uncovered on any other influential family in the United States, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would no doubt initiate thorough investigations. Now, just imagine if Hunter was a Republican. The president's son does not deserve special treatment, period. Holding Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress is the responsible reaction to his blatant disregard for federal law and our duty to investigate potential wrongdoings by the President of the United States. This committee has analyzed thousands of pages of bank records, leading to the discovery of $24 million of wire transfers and payments from foreign companies and foreign nationals directly to this Biden family. Through interviews with Biden family closest associates, the committee discovered that Hunter Biden used his father's name and influence in meetings with foreign nationals over 20 times. Witness testimonies prove that Hunter Biden dined with foreign individuals from countries such as Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan alongside his father, who is the sitting vice president of the United States. And the list of evidence goes on and on. The president himself has been exposed for lying. Both the White House and Hunter have used every tool at their disposal to obstruct this investigation and to block the gathering of evidence. This blatant corruption must be held to account. It's one of the major duties of this very committee. And that's why on September 12, 2023, as a result of the significant evidence against the current president, the Speaker of the House asked the Oversight Committee to conduct an inquiry to determine whether or not sufficient grounds existed for the impeachment of President Biden. Hunter Biden's testimony is a critical component of the impeachment inquiry into whether President Biden or his family personally profited from his office as vice president or his current role as president of the United States. And these facts cannot get in the way. We have got to get on with this investigation and end the distractions that we've heard here today. Let's get this contempt provision put forward, and let's move forward with this impeachment inquiry.
Will the gentleman yield? Will the gentleman yield?
Mr. Gosar.
We'll yield my time to Mr. Gosar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Langworthy. You know, to the ranking member, you know, we're cherry picking, and to Mr. Lynch, we're cherry picking because if you go back to those individuals we had as witnesses, they all said there doesn't exist that information now, but there exists the potential to be there. And the inquiry is different than an impeachment. It is a search for that document. So I think we got to be very, very careful on both sides when we're talking about this, that we give the whole picture, not part of the picture, the whole picture to this.
And what's been found since then?
Well, once again, there's stuff there. So
I'm sorry?
There is stuff there.
There's stuff there?
Yeah.
Can you share it with us?
Because you stack up these.
Also, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Gosser here is he's got some type of disease. It's been described as like Parkinson's of the neck. That's why his head bobbles like this. I believe he's a dentist.
Random corporations. What are you producing?
So people are like, what's
if
with
I'm
this
a manufacturer,
guy?
I would do that.
He's
because
got like
they have different
Parkinson's of the
businesses
neck. He can't help it.
They have nothing to sell.
And I love
The
him.
paintings, it was access to the president. So now whether that reaches high crimes and misdemeanors, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. But last but not least, I want to make sure that we also get to this, is that you did the process and you stated it. The language has been repeated over and over again. You do this massive hunt with attorneys, not people like dentists or others. You do it with attorneys
he's
to
a
gather that
dentist.
information. And then they selectively compile it. You guys get questions, we get questions, and we cover the ground more efficiently. That's why this process works. I agree with you. You do the behind the doors, then you come out here for the public. I think there's no difference there. I yield back.
Good. Chair now recognizes Mr. Kassar for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My distinguished colleague.
Okay, he's got arthritis and has 2 compressed vertebrae in his back that have required surgery to connect. He cites years of hunching over for long periods while a dentist as the cause, as well as genetics and history of playing rugby. I forget now what it's actually called, but it's like an arthritis in his neck that gives him like Parkinson's type uncontrollability. He can't control his neck.
Colleague, the gentlelady from Florida, held up a poster board saying we should hold Hunter Biden in contempt because of a provision saying refusal of a witness to testify. But that doesn't apply in that we have a witness that was here and is willing to testify. Now, I'll give everybody credit here. There seems to be disagreement about whether to do the closed-door deposition, but there is an area of agreement. And the area of agreement is to have a public hearing. And so what I'm interested in, I'll yield a minute of time over to you, Chairman, or somebody from the other side. We've been here for hours, and I have still yet to figure out why we don't have Mr. Hunter Biden here to answer our questions for whatever period of time we want in front of the Oversight Committee. So I want to understand. I want to give Mr. Fallon due credit from the great state of Texas for saying, well, he wants to make sure we have enough time. Mr. Chairman, I'm sure we could agree to whatever amount of time was necessary. But I'm having a lot of trouble understanding why the Republican majority won't take yes for an answer and ask questions of Hunter Biden here publicly. That I think we would really learn, because all I've been hearing on TV news is over and over again that we need to ask Hunter Biden questions. He's saying we can. Why refuse to have this public hearing that it sounds like?
Are you yielding to me?
Yeah, I'm happy to yield you 30 seconds.
So we've obtained thousands of pages of bank documents. We've reviewed 170 suspicious activity reports from banks filed against the Bidens. From my banking background, that's unprecedented to have that many bank violations that allege very serious things, from money laundering to tax evasion to bribery. And we have a lot of questions. We want to treat him like any other witness. He doesn't get to set the rules. We will depose him. And look, we split time with Democrats. You all get an equal amount of time with Hunter Biden. Then we'll have a public hearing.
But I guess my question is, if there is disagreement, and it sounds like there is, around the deposition, why not have the public hearing? Is there a reason?
We will
Is there
after
a
the
reason?
deposition.
I understand, Mr. Chairman, but nobody has explained to me clearly yet, and I think to your own districts, to my district, why not call Hunter Biden in tomorrow? Why not ask him in next week? We're ready.
Well,
to
gentlemen, yield. I'd love to
you-
answer that
you-
question.
For those of you who
Yeah,
have
so I
lavender
would love to have
oil,
deposed him right here today.
We had a motion.
Rules.
We had
There's
rules.
rules. You have 3 days.
Let's do it in 3
on
days.
yesterday on
My
my
whole point
Is
is
pressure
behind closed
points.
doors. I would have gone right now. He's here. He's got his legal
Namaste, my
representation there.
friends. Namaste.
Let's play this game. But we have rules that say you have 3 days.
I'm not playing game one. I'm sure we could waive the 3 days. Second, we could have it here in 3 days if there's agreement about, if what we're hearing from the Republican side over and over and over again is they've got questions for Hunter Biden. The quotes from this hearing. Hunter Biden's testimony is critical. I want to delve into questions I have for Mr. Biden. Why not ask for those? Why not ask for that tomorrow? We can
The
see if
deposition tomorrow?
No, we would have him here in public tomorrow in front of everyone.
After the
I understand
deposition?
you're saying after the deposition, but my question for you is just very clearly, why not have the public hearing tomorrow?
Will the gentleman yield to that question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if
And
you
Mr.
may.
Donalds, I want to compliment you
Namaste.
because I remember our first Oversight Committee hearing, you said it'd be good to have these real conversations, so I genuinely
I am all for this, Mr. Kassar. I actually enjoy this part if we ever get to it. Look, the reality is, and you have attorneys on your side of the aisle, there is never any proceeding that takes place without a deposition of the witness.
like Donald.
The reason why is because if something comes up in the round of questioning, either A,
For
members
those
of this
of you
committee may
who
not be
do
prepared
live
because they don't
streams
have all
and
the
have a
information
microphone,
from the
put
witness,
some of this
because the
on your
witness was never
little
given an opportunity with his attorneys
windscreen.
present to actually give
Lavender.
out that level of information. So you need a deposition
Oh, I'm
process
good now.
before you bring a witness into open hearing. This happens all the time. This is actually the protocol of the House. And Mr. Kassar, what your side of the aisle is requesting, with all due respect, is a deviation from the historical precedent
Will the
of the
gentleman
House of
yield?
Representatives.
I'll yield back to the ranking member.
Well, but thank you for moving the ball forward with that
do have this
explanation.
on 1.25
That has been the
times.
practice sometimes, not all times. There's the vast majority of witnesses who
they're
come
really-
before this committee come without being
could
deposed first.
probably
We come
watch
and ask
that
for their
normal speeder.
testimony. But
We'll
in any
never
event,
get through
even
it,
for
though.
a witness who's being subpoenaed, like Mr. Biden was, we have a completely different situation when the chairman goes out publicly and says, we will give you the choice, A or B. You can have a deposition, you can come in the hearing, but I challenge you, I invite you, I insist that you come before the committee, and repeatedly says that. So that's why I think legally it's a very complex question, but I don't see why we take this all the way to all the way to court. If you guys really want to hear from him, let's have a public hearing and then depose him afterwards. But he's saying he doesn't want to be misrepresented. Thank you for yielding.
Time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Burleson from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What should be obvious to the American people, what I think we need to just say to the American people is to point out that this kind of food fight, this circus that we've experienced is the reason why we want to have a deposition. In a
that's the one I
deposition, you don't
copied.
get people distracting the American public with all these other topics. And during a deposition, they don't get to lie to the American people for 5 minutes at a time. They don't get distracted, they don't get to lie, and they don't get to divert from the facts of what's happening. But what I see happening is what's being telegraphed here is that they're building a case, a political case really, because that's what this is. It's all politics that they're entering into for why the Department of Justice, or giving Merrick Garland an excuse, which we all knew that he would not prosecute, probably not prosecute these contempt charges, because it would be hypocritical if he did so. He would, because he prosecuted Steve Bannon, even though Bannon was actually working for the president, and was able to raise the speech and debate clause that was mentioned in the Constitution. Merrick Garland still prosecuted him for that. Here's what's really frustrating to the American people, and they see right through this.
Well, just like Bella says, we need change in this country. It's so messed up. It is. And that's why, again, I out of being daring, I guess, to tap the political waters, if you will, with my new friends over on YouTube. I was so pleased to see that there was people coming in and staying from both sides of the aisle. I mean, like Dan Bongino says, the GOP most certainly can't solve all of your problems, but all of your problems or most of your problems are stemming from the left side of the aisle. So, and I also thought, for those that want to take a look, maybe the reason, maybe when people say, I don't want to talk politics, we're not talking politics on this channel. Well, maybe that's where we're going wrong because people are so afraid to, listen. And in these hearings, you can hear both sides and how crazy both sides are, basically. So maybe that's another thing that we're doing wrong. We're saying, oh, nope, we're not going to talk politics. I'm not going to talk politics. Maybe we should force ourselves to.
We're now going through a second process over really
Almost
the
as much
same
as I like
crimes
true crime.
that were committed when Joe Biden was vice president. And those crimes include the creation of dozens and dozens of limited liability companies, dozens of bank accounts. When people say, where are the facts?
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask, what facts are you looking for? Because to me, bank records are facts. Suspicious activity reports are facts. Copies of checks are facts. When you juxtapose that with the WhatsApp message and what's on the Hunter Biden laptop and the deposition from witnesses like Mr. Archer, when you add to it further depositions, as we're going to hear about soon, the art dealer, when you layer all that together, that's a compelling story. There's a lot of facts.
Money
And you know what?
laundering
I would
and
hate to be on the other
book
side of the aisle
deals.
and try to defend this situation. And so I think that the only outcome would be to distract, to try to make this a political process. But it still stands as a fact that when the Democrats were in charge, they brought in the president's son. They brought him in multiple times, and they brought him into depositions, and he agreed. And this is what should be the takeaway message to the American people. When the Trump family was asked, when they came in and they gave depositions, the Biden family, once again, Hunter Biden feels that he's privileged. He's privileged. He doesn't have to pay taxes like everyone else. He's privileged that apparently he can traffic sex workers across the globe and get away with it. He's privileged in that he can get.
Actually, in Dan Bongino's show yesterday, he talks about how, Dan Bongino was in the Secret Service for 12 years through Bush 43 and Obama years. I think he quit towards the end of Obama's second term, but he was in Secret Service for 12 years. And in his live stream that I posted a little bit ago, replying to Wolfram, that's another thing he mentioned yesterday is, he still maintains lots of friendships within the Secret Service. And Hunter Biden overseas with, let's just say, underage ladies of the night, if you will. I mean, some of his Secret Service were saying, sir, you can't do this. And he's just like, kept doing it anyway. Like I said, I've got audiobooks on the Rumble site. Laptop from Hell is very disturbing, but it's on there. And then Dan Bongino's Follow the Money audiobook is over there too for free. It's just there's no playlist, so I have on my list to make a list of all the links so you can find them. Mimsy, I wish I could find out where my emojis are in this Restream studio. Maybe I can copy and paste Bella's. Sending you prayers, dear. Everybody take a moment, bow your head for Mimsy. She's going through some treatment now. Please watch over her. Make sure to keep her in your thoughts and prayers. I'm not much of a pastor, but we will pray for you. We'll pray for you.
Away with acting as a foreign advocate
won't let me copy
and be able to get away with it when other people are prosecuted and sent to jail for the very same thing. The American people see that there's two standards of justice. And when we're trying to go about the people's business in a serious manner, we end up allowing a food fight, which is exactly why he did what he did when he went across the street as far away as he could from this building and had his press conference, and then why he today showed up when the hour was way too late. I yield the remainder of my time.
What did they say last
Cherry
week
Ms.
when we
Brown.
were watching Zachariah Anderson? The best
Thank you,
hugs are
Mr.
the
Chairman.
big ones from
I am
from
not a lawyer,
behind.
and
You
nor
know,
do I try to pretend to
that's
play
what we
one on
have for you,
TV.
Mimsy.
But it is plain for all of us to see we are here on behalf of one man, the self-proclaimed dictator on day one, the twice impeached, 4 times indicted, insurrection initiator and supporter, election denier, convicted fraudster, and maniacal manipulator from Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, let's try that one.
The one who lost and lost badly. We are here because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have no positive agenda to run on. They have not accomplished one thing in their year in the majority to improve the lives of the
That work?
people
No.
around this country. We are not here to
Gotta be
hold the
in here
president
somewhere.
in contempt of Congress.
I'll
We are
find
not
it.
even here to hold a member of President Biden's administration in contempt of Congress. For some reason, the majority has gathered us here to hold the president's son, his son, who I will remind all of us is not and has not ever.
Again, this is such a hypocritical line of bullshit. If you've been watching for the last preceding 2 sessions of Congress, it was nothing but orange mad bad, the mean tweeter, let's get him out of office, he's corrupt. And then now look at their tune is totally
been
changed.
a government official.
Now, I'm not going to lie, in some instances, I do believe it's kind of a game of tit for tat, if you will. But if you're going to, I mean, you set the precedent trying to get rid of the last president. So here's a nice healthy dose of your own medicine, kind of.
In contempt of Congress, despite his willingness to come testify publicly before this committee. So getting to the truth was never their actual goal. Instead of working together to solve big problems on behalf of the American people,
Hi,
my
Shani
Republican
Graham.
colleagues continue to pursue a meritless,
Welcome back.
groundless, baseless investigation into the president's family. Meanwhile, back in my district, during our recess, I was literally dodging bullets at a funeral of a gun violence victim. And I never felt so powerless and vulnerable because I know that when I got back here, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle refused to do anything about it. Yet, they continue to make efforts to ban books, rewrite history, make it harder for people that look like me to vote, and to make it harder for
that's
women
not
to make
true.
their own health care decisions. We see nothing on the other side of the aisle but distraction, diversion, deflection, dangerous destruction of our ever so delicate democracy. So with that, I am tired of the political theater. I want to get to work for the people back home in the 11th Congressional District because they quite frankly don't care about Hunter Biden.
Okay,
Will the
but
gentleman
they
yield?
care
With that, I will
about
yield the balance
POTUS
of my time to
45,
my
the
ranking
4
member.
years. that
Ms.
you
Brown,
tried
thank
to
you so
impeach
much.
him
You
and get him
started
out
off
of
by saying
office?
something pretty profound,
Question mark?
which is we are here instead of doing the business of the American people because the Republicans have offered us no positive agenda in their year in office. We know we've wasted countless weeks in them just trying to pick a speaker. And we've wasted countless weeks with their inertia and their do-nothing policies. But Ms. Brown, I don't know if you recall, I just don't want people having to take your word for it. I think numerous Republicans have gotten up on the floor of the House complaining about the fact that they have no agenda. I think our colleague Chip Roy from Texas said that the Republicans have not given him one thing, a single thing, I remember him saying, to campaign on. So I just want to ask you, when you're saying that they have no agenda, that's not a partisan point. You're getting that from Republicans, aren't you?
That is correct.
One of our colleagues said that there was Trump derangement syndrome, and of course, Trump derangement begins with Donald Trump himself. He thinks he has a legal right to assassinate U.S. citizens. He thinks he can grab women by their genitals, although that's not the word that he used. He said that if Joe Biden is reelected president, there will be World War II. He is obviously deranged and disoriented, but the real Trump derangement syndrome that I see is those people who cannot break from Donald Trump after he's proven himself to be completely and totally unworthy of your support. Because I'm looking at talented, gifted people on the other side of the aisle, the ones who have not left Congress in frustration or because they've broken with Donald Trump and clashed with him. But I'm still looking at people who have their wits about them, I think, but you're acting like cult members, like you're sleeping on the basement of a cult, listening to tapes all night, and I beg you to get over your Trump derangement syndrome. Thank you very much for yielding, Ms. Brown.
Chair recognizes Mr. Donalds from Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. First, it was said in this hearing, Mr. Chairman, about you specifically, that you repeatedly said you would give Mr. Biden any opportunity. He could choose which one to come and speak in front of this committee. He could do it by deposition. He could do it by open hearing. It was up to him. The truth of the matter, though, is that the chairman's words are not binding. Like, no other member's words of Congress are really not binding. The binding article...
Point of order. Does the chairman agree with that? Point of order. Does the chairman agree?
Are you going to restore my time?
Point of order. Just point of order. Does the chairman agree that the chairman's words are not binding on the committee?
That's not a point of order. It has nothing to do with the order of this hearing. Thank you. Can I go back to 4 minutes and 34 seconds? That's where I was before I was interrupted by Mr. Raskin.
Yes, reset the
Thank
clock.
you. Thank you. What is binding is the actual written document, the written language in the subpoena, because a subpoena from this committee is also signed off on by the clerk of the House. That is the binding document that matters here. That is what governs. That's number one. Number two, that was said in this hearing. It was said that our witnesses said that there was no basis for an impeachment. But remember, members on the Democrat side of the aisle, what was said by Mr. Turley at the time was that there was plenty of evidence for the continuation of an impeachment inquiry. And the purpose of that hearing was the relevant basis for an impeachment inquiry. The House has now voted for an impeachment inquiry. And one of the first things that the House did after the vote of an impeachment inquiry was to subpoena Hunter Biden to appear. Hunter Biden has evaded that subpoena. So flagrantly did he evade it that he decided to show up at the Senate side to give a press conference, and Eric Swalwell, a member of the House, helped him get that time on the Senate side to give a press conference. That's a flagrant violation of a congressional subpoena. Secondarily, he has the gall to show up here when we're actually discussing contempt. And he didn't stay. He was sitting right over there. He's not here now. He said he wants to talk. He could have stayed through the whole proceeding. He chose to leave. That's his business. But he was subpoenaed to come here back in December. He chose not to of his own volition. He's in violation of that subpoena, a subpoena that was executed with the signature of the clerk of the House of Representatives. That is the document that is binding. That's what we work off of. Mr. Chairman, I actually want to submit for the record an article from The Hill written by Jonathan Turley, and it is titled Eric Swalwell and the Politics of Contempt.
Without objection to order.
Thank you. I'm glad something got admitted to the record. A couple other points. One quick point I want to make, and this is in reference to the minority's report about this $7.8 million. I want the minority.
I was going to ask if you like this, the way this window is. Again, I'm using Restream Studio. Yeah, I don't think that's any better than the other one. So I don't have a whole lot of options, but I know somebody this morning, in attempt number one to get this live stream done, liked how the chat shows up on the right hand side like this, and then I just made the viewing window smaller. So let me know if you like this, because I can do this in OBS too. I don't know, for some reason I always feel compelled to make the viewing screen as large as I can. Because we are live streaming on both YouTube and Kick and Rumble at the same time. The Kick side and the Rumble side doesn't chat very much, so at least they're getting the comments put up. I don't know. Let me know.
Already to understand one very important distinction between President Biden and President Trump. President Trump has an international real estate portfolio that he has amassed over decades. I'm quite sure if you go back through all of the hotel receipts before he was president of the United States, that you had foreign dignitaries staying at Trump hotels all across the world.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'm not going to yield, Mr. Raskin. I'm making a point, because they're actually very nice hotels. They look good. People like staying there.
I think he actually sold that.
President Trump was not running.
I think he actually sold that one in DC, because they were saying, remember, he opened it like right after he was sworn into office. The hotel he put up in the old post office in DC, and I'm pretty sure he sold it because, you know, they were trying to play this, oh, he's making all this money and it's foreign influence peddling, etc.
Organization when he was president of the United States. To my recollection, Eric Trump, the president's son, was actually running the Trump organization when President Trump was president of the United States. So if he had a portfolio of hotels and people choose, you know, through Expedia, through Kayak, through Hotels.com, if they choose to go and stay there, how is that the president being in violation of what the emoluments cost? That's what you're citing? Stop. Ladies and gentlemen, America, this is ridiculous.
Real estate market's going to crash this year, is what I've heard. Not a good time for me to think about putting my house on the market.
The Biden family has no business. They've never had a business except for politics. And the one thing that the Oversight Committee, in conjunction with the Ways and Means Committee and in conjunction with the Judiciary Committee, has always been able to demonstrate is that they shook down foreign nations for millions, 26 million at the latest count, and growing, millions. And there was never any business entity involved except public corruption and a pay-for-play scheme. The House Oversight Committee would like to get to the bottom of this under the impeachment inquiry of the House. We have questions for Hunter Biden. We issued a subpoena for him to answer said questions. He ignored a congressional subpoena as a private citizen. There are many attorneys on the other side of the aisle. If you had one of your clients in your private practice ignore a congressional subpoena as a private citizen, you would advise them not to, because they would be held in contempt and they would actually be punished by the Department of Justice.
Just
So I
put
find
it
it
on mute.
today. I'm not going to yield,
The
Mr.
closed
Goldman, because I had a
captioning
question for you
on.
earlier. You didn't want to take my question, so I'm not going to take yours. Thank you. So, in closing, I will say, private citizens, yes, they have a
Or I
responsibility
do
to answer
think
congressional subpoenas.
that, where's the closed captioning? Something happened to my window up here when I reset things. Oh, man.
They do. Hunter Biden had it, and he was flagrant. He decided to give a press conference. So we're going to do this business, and he should be held in contempt by the full House of
no.
Representatives.
Oh,
I yield back,
here.
Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Chair now recognizes Ms. Norton from Washington, D.C.
There.
for 5 minutes.
Turn it on mute. I do like
I
Byron
yield my 5
Donald.
minutes to Mr. Raskin.
I'd like to thank the distinguished delegate from the District of Columbia, and I need to correct the
gotta find my
record
hand
because of
copy
several
ring.
false statements made about the
usually
Foreign
wear
Emoluments
those.
Clause, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, although I do appreciate the gentleman
I'm
for his
making a
attempt
bunch
to
of
at least
these
engage
pictures.
of substance that was raised so
Let's see how
powerfully
much
by
they
Ms.
cost to
Crockett.
mail.
Now let's start with this. It says that neither the president nor any member of Congress can
Eris, I
receive a
appreciate
present
any
and
time you
emolument, which
spend
means a
here.
payment, an office, or a title from a prince, a king, a foreign
Go find
government,
your
quote,
namaste.
Mr. Donald, of
We had
any
an hour
kind,
and
whatever.
9 minutes of this
Of any kind,
screaming.
whatever, without going to Congress first and obtaining the consent of Congress. There's no hotel exception, Mr. Donald, to the Foreign Emoluments Clause. There's no international real estate syndicate exception to the Foreign Emoluments Clause, Mr. Donald. And also, I will take you up on your challenge to see whether the Trump Hotel in Washington, the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, the Trump Hotel on Fifth Avenue, the Trump Hotel at UN Plaza, the 4 of the more than 500 businesses that we got documentation for, whether they actually had the same level of business coming from Saudi Arabia, the communist bureaucrats of China, who were the leading spenders, as you know, if you've read our report, the United Arab Emirates, India. We will make that comparison about what was done before if you get the chairman to call off the ban on further documents coming from Mazars. So
Have you ever stayed at a Trump hotel, Mr. Raskin?
Excuse no, and I never would stay at a Trump hotel. I've got too much self-respect and
stay at
concern
bad
for
hotels?
hygiene. So, but in any event,
Okay, so Mimsy says, I'm so bummed right when Trump ran, I got a Up Yours Hillary bumper sticker and a mega hat in the mail. Have no idea who sent it. I gave the hat to my oldest brother, wish I kept it. So I have my impeachment, his mugshot shirt over there. And I wear it if I'm on Rumble, I should say. And then over there is my Trump 2020 hat that I had gotten standing in line at Fleet Farm, which is kind of like a Menards. They got just like a Hodgepodge or Home Depot, but I mean, they've got like food there, farm stuff. Like if you have horses, I always got like the hamster stuff there, cat, dog. They have firearms there at Fleet Farm. Anyway, it's a potpourri of stuff. Laundry soap. Well, anyway, my son and I had gone to the Trump rally in Minneapolis on October 10th, 2019, right after he had announced he was going to run for re-election. My son took a day off of school, and incidentally, we were standing in line. He ran into two of his friends from band, because my son was in marching band, and they had also and we had the best time. We got like a club. There's actually a picture of him with his arms stretched out, and it's in like panoramic, and you can see my son's head up in the little box that we were sitting in. We had so much fun that day. I was sicker than a dog. Anyway, so right after that, I was at Fleet Farm standing in line, and there was somebody checking out with the cashier. Then there was me, and there was somebody behind me. And the cashier said, I love your hat. And I actually had a pretty cute looking hat on. And I'm like looking, and then I'm thinking he's talking about the hat. And I look behind me, and this guy's got a Trump 2020 hat on. It's over there. I'll go grab it. Anyway, so I look and I'm like, oh my God, I love your hat too. So we started talking, and turns out the cashier was like a high school kid from a local private Christian high school. And he had gone to the rally because I said, "Did you go to the rally?" And the guy behind me, him and his wife said, yeah, we did." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I took my son." And then the cashier piped in, "I went to that too. It was awesome." I mean, we're in Minnesota, you never know. And anyway, so we started talking, and I said I was going to get a hat, but they only had the Make America Great Again hat. They didn't have a hat like that. And I said the other hat I wanted was, it just said 40, it was a white hat with 45, but the 45 was embroidered in white. So I got some straws and some bumper stickers. That's all I got. Anyway, so I check out my stuff. We keep talking, and then it's his turn to check out, and I'm getting all my bags, and we're saying our goodbyes. And then he comes up to me and he says, "So you didn't get a hat?" And I said, "No." Oh, he had told me he had just ordered a bunch of like Christmas stockings. Anyway, so he goes, you didn't get a hat?" And I said, "No." And he took his hat off and put it on my head, and he said, "Merry Christmas." So that's how I got my hat. The guy at Home Depot. It was really cool. I'm like, "No, I can't take your hat." The wife goes, "Trust me, he's got plenty of hats." I'll go grab it.
Mr. Donald, you're totally wrong about what the Foreign Emoluments Clause stands for. Abraham Lincoln was given
I
two
don't
elephant
trip on
tusks
my
by the
wires
King
here.
of Siam during the Civil War, and he liked them very much. He wanted to keep them, but he went to Congress, which is what every other president did before and every president did since, right up until Donald Trump, and he asked whether he could keep the tusks, and Congress, though they loved Honest Abe, said, no, you can't keep them. I mean, John F. Kennedy was offered citizenship by the people of Ireland because they loved him so much, and he refused to take it, saying that even though it didn't violate the letter of the emoluments.
Okay, I'm going to tell you another story. It just dawned on me. So I have my Trump bumper sticker, or had it, on the car. Yeah, I only had it on the car. But after he lost, uh, well, and actually before the election, I was leaving the grocery store, and there was a lady and her son putting their cart away, and she said, "Oh, look, there's a Trump bumper sticker." And I'm like, "Oh boy, I'm getting ready to like roll up my sleeves. All right, time to duke it out." You know, I live in Minnesota. I mean, it's pretty apparent. And so I turned around and looked, and the kid goes like this. He was like 12. He goes, "Yes." So that's story number 1. Story number 2, I was sitting in the left turn lane at a stoplight. Car pulls up going straight, also stopped at the light, and beeps at me. And I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." And he looks at me and he points to the trunk area and he goes, "Thumbs up." And I'm like, "Okay, there's 2." Trying to think if there was any. Oh no, there was another guy. There was another guy with a red hat on that stopped me at a light. It was like summertime, and he goes, "I love the bumper sticker." I'm like, "I love your hat." Anyway, but then when he lost, I've had at least 3 times where I've been at Target, Home Depot, and I get out of my car and people will say, I love your bumper sticker." And then I'll look and say, "Oh, thank you. I miss him so much." And like people will give me hugs. I miss him too. Then I went to the local spring. So we have springs here where you fill up your water bottles. Okay, this last story. And right after he lost, no, actually it was right before the election. I have a picture. On the curb, right where people go. I mean, people line up for a while at this natural spring that we have. And on the curb, it says Trump 2020, like spray painted. I took a picture and sent it to my ex-husband, and I'm like, "Check this out. It's at the Eden Prairie Spring." Not once ever, the whole entire time I had that bumper sticker on, like after the guy from Fleet Farm gave me the hat, I'd wear the hat around. No one ever once has said anything negative, ever. I've only gotten nice compliments and hugs from total strangers in Minnesota.
Clause.
There.
It violated the
There's
spirit
my
of the Monuments
stories.
Clause. And Donald Trump converted the presidency into an instrument for self-enrichment. He raked in millions of dollars from the most corrupt governments on earth, who came in with specific favors that we document in our report that they got from Donald Trump. I beseech my colleagues, I will read any book, any magazine, any speech you've given that you want me to read this report, and come back and tell me if you think Donald Trump did the right thing in converting the White House into a for-profit operation. No other president in American history has come anywhere close. And you ask why he's so determined to stay in office that he would unleash violence against his own vice president, the brother of your colleague, of our colleague. Why would he do that? It's because it was a money-making operation, and it was a great business grift for a guy who went bankrupt several times. And yet, out of some misguided partisan loyalty, you're going to stick with him. I don't even know why you stick with him. He was a Democrat longer than he was a Republican. He wanted to run for president on the Reform Party. You guys have been taken over by an absolute con man. And now you're acting like members of a religious cult who don't even remember how you got in the first place. We say return the profits. Donald Trump, $7.8 million. I got a letter,
with his
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to share, telling Donald Trump to return these It's a small fraction of what he raked in. We want to know about the other 2 years in office. We want to know about the other businesses, not just those 4 that we were able to get information on. And we want to know about every country on earth, not just the 20 autocracies and dictatorships that we found. This is our government. This is our Constitution. And we're going to stand up for it against Donald Trump and anybody who follows him to the path of oblivion. Abraham Lincoln started your party as a third party to replace the Whigs because they wouldn't take a moral stand against slavery. It was a pro-freedom, anti-slavery, pro-union, pro-honesty party. And your party has been reduced to a corrupt, authoritarian cult of personality. And everybody does whatever Donald Trump tells them to do, which is what we're doing here today with this stupid attempt to hold Hunter Biden in contempt when he has come forward to say he will testify and give you everything you want, as the chairman of the committee repeatedly offered in public. So forgive my outrage and indignation, but enough is enough. Let's get back to the business of the people, as Ms.
Chair
Brown
recognizes
said.
Mr. Higgins for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so for those of you on the YouTube side, Fage, my future husband. Now, I know that's not very nice, but I mean, the man has been married 4 times, and he's my favorite. And I'm going to actually put him on normal speed because he does get spicy. For those of you on Rumble, you know how much I love MFH, and we actually have an emoji over there for him.
Mr. Chairman, the American people may be surprised to know some of my colleagues across the aisle hasn't served as long as we have.
Oh, he's kind of slow today.
Might be surprised to know that Representative Raskin and I had been building quite a colleague friendship in my original years of service. Prior to J6 especially, we would visit and we would debate constitutionalist questions, and he honored me by observation of my what he would sometimes call compelling arguments, contradictory to his own. So it's with sincerity that I say congratulations to my colleague, Mr. Raskin, because you have obviously fully recovered from your cancer treatments.
Thank you, my dear friend, and I do love you.
You're quite animated, and I believe there's a direct correlation between your testimony against former President Trump and his poll numbers, because I'm watching a live feed. The more you talk about him, the more his numbers go up. So I may yield you more time. But I would honestly like to ask you, if I could, regarding the deposition, just from a calm, if we could take a step back from the emotion here and the political conflict and this sort of prepared for battle debate we're in here. Just regarding depositions, we've all been through depositions in one way or another. They're very cold and calculated, and you have your attorney there, and then the bad guys, there's always the other guys. They have their attorneys, and you're either being sued or you're part of a suit. You're either the defendant or the plaintiff, and you're in a room for hours until all the questions have been asked. So, sincerely, why, if you were Hunter's attorney or advisor, why would you advise him not to participate in a deposition wherein his own attorney is there? It's private and everything is transcribed. His words cannot be twisted by the fake news. Just tell us, Mr. Raskin, and I yield for your answer.
Thank you kindly. And I should tell you that your feelings are not unrequited. I still have very fond and warm feelings for you. I'm sorry that January 6th came between us, and I look forward to a day in our republic.
So also on my list, I mentioned this morning, it might actually be in the description box. One of the recent Tucker Carlson episodes is him interviewing MFH Representative Higgins here regarding January 6th. One of the hearings a couple months ago, Higgins had a moment where he pulled up pictures of the two white buses, one of the first tour buses to arrive, and asked a couple of the witnesses, "Who were in these buses, sir?" And then, of course, he got cut off from the Democrats and then wasn't able to go down that line of questioning. But they've been investigating that now since they took over the majority for a year. He's very
When we
well
will be really
versed
good
in
friends
that whole
again.
thing.
But in a direct answer to your question, if I were his lawyer and I were his advisor, I would never advise him not to come and testify before the committee, except for
Okay,
one
Aris,
thing.
we'll see you
and this
over
is why, and
there.
I started out this way.
55
Specifically, I'm
minutes.
asking about deposition.
Yes, about deposition.
Because we want the deposition first,
I would
clarify,
no, but-
then the
but-
public testimony.
Just to answer your question, I would recommend it, except that they were publicly given the offer numerous times to come before the whole committee, and they state a fear on their part, which is not unreasonable, that their words will be distorted and the transcript of the interview will never be released, because the vast majority of the transcribed interviews have not been released. And I would use this as an opportunity to call on the chairman.
Let me just say that I
Yeah.
think that's solid counsel. But that brings us to our next point, my next point, which is that as a free American, which, I mean, to a certain extent, we still have some individual rights and freedoms, including to not comply with a subpoena. But so as a free American, Hunter Biden has a right to not comply with a congressional subpoena, but we have the right to take the next step as a Congress. If we believe the subpoena was righteous and his noncompliance with that subpoena was unrighteous, if we believe that our subpoena was lawful and we have presented probable cause and lawful argument to support that subpoena, then we have not only the right, but we have the obligation that he was in contempt of Congress when he took that stand of noncompliance, which is where we are right now. Doesn't have to be emotional. The man had the right to not show up. We have the right to hold him in contempt, and that's what's happening. So, by all means, as my colleagues have stated, let us move forward with the people's business. The people's business today in this committee is to move forward with the vote to hold Hunter Biden in contempt. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. Does any other member wish to be heard before we begin the amendment process? Seeing none, I understand there's an amendment at the desk. Oh, Mr. Cloud. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize. Mr. Cloud from Texas for 5 minutes.
Well, in the true DC meeting maxim of everything's been said, but not everyone's said it, since I haven't said anything yet, I'll go ahead and mention it. But we've heard words about irrefutable evidence being presented, and I just have to say I don't think that word means what you think it means. And there's a stark contrast that's been pointed out between how the Democrats have investigated and how we investigated. They are opposed to a closed-door deposition, which they've held a number of times. As a matter of fact, during the impeachment hearings, I sat in the skiff along with others while they withheld the transcripts that they are worried about. And so oftentimes it seems like their motivations they're portraying their motivations on us, and that's just not the case. I remember sitting, for example, in one of the hearings, and one of the witnesses who worked at the White House was asked, did the president talk to you before coming here? And said, well, we passed in the hallway and had a conversation. What did he say? Just tell the truth. Ironically, that part didn't.
Oh, we got a disconnect again.
Opponent of Trump as a candidate, and
Well, at least
created
when
a
it's
whole Russian
disconnecting,
collusion
it's
narrative
reconnecting
that was
right
spent millions
away,
of
knock on
government
wood.
tax dollars on, perpetrating this big lie that our colleagues on the other side helped promote. This one began with a laptop that Hunter Biden produced himself, and then was backed up with bank documents. And then he's all over the place. And then there's talk about the business, the fact that Trump's business has made money from people who stay at the hotels. Is that not shocking? I think every American expected that people in other countries where some of his hotels are might have stayed at those hotels. That is not a shocking thing. But the big difference, of course, is that President Trump and his son is not manning the reservation desk. And they're not the ones answering the call and handing it over and saying, the big guy's sitting with me, would you like a room at the hotel? That is not happening. But yet for these shell companies that Hunter Biden has set up in the Biden family, that's exactly what we've seen has been happening. And I would say that money that comes into the Trump organization doesn't go directly. Now, I'm sure there's some return on the investment that the Trump family has made, but it also employs several employees that get money from that what comes in. I doubt that these 20 shell companies have nearly the employees of one hotel that a Trump property has. Probably not as many hotels or as many employees as you would find in the lobby, working the lobby of one of these hotels. So this is completely different. They're trying to compare apples and oranges and confuse the American people back home. It's totally not the case. And getting back to the point of today's hearing, this really is about contempt. And so what we've seen happen is Hunter Biden has come here now twice just to not speak to this committee. So contempt is defined as a lack of respect or reverence for something, a willful disobedience or open disrespect for a court, judge, and legislative body. He flew all the way over here the day he was scheduled for a deposition just to not appear and to kind of thumb his nose here at this body. Today he showed up, and the minority is trying to make the case, well, he showed up to speak. We've been here a couple times. I've been in a couple committee hearings, not nearly as many of the members here. Never have I seen a witness show up when they want to show up on any sort of thing to say, hey, I'm here to speak on what I want to speak about. That is not how Congress works. That's not how any meeting on the Hill works. That's ridiculous to think that somebody's going to be able to show up and just mandate the agenda for today's meeting, which is further evidence of why he is holding Congress in contempt. He thinks he's above the law. He thinks it has no weight on him, and understandably so for the moment, because the DOJ refuses to follow up on anything and has done their best effort to work with the IRS and other agencies to shield and protect the Biden family. This is important. We have to hold them in contempt, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does any other member wish to be heard before we begin the amendment process? Seeing none, I understand there's an amendment at the desk.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
For what purpose does Mr. Goldman seek recognition?
Oh, my apologies for jumping ahead. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will distribute the amendment to all members. Does everyone have the amendment? No. All right, we're going to let the clerk distribute the amendment. I believe it was changed in the last little bit.
That's okay. I would ask that the clerk read the amendment. My apologies, I withdraw.
Oops.
While we're waiting for everyone to review the amendment, I'll say we had 3 hours of opening statements. So hopefully.
We're going to end in about...
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute as offered by Mr. Goldman of New
close
York.
out in about 40
Without
minutes.
objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order.
Move
The
over
gentleman
to
from New York
MLS.
is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would strike all of the resolve clauses and the report, and it would insert language that details all of the extensive efforts to cooperate
We're gonna
that
move
Hunter
this guy
Biden and
up.
his attorney have made in response to this committee's requests for testimony and information from him. That began in February when Chairman Comer wrote to request documents and communications related to our investigation of President Biden's involvement in your financial conduct. The following day, his attorney wrote back to Chairman Comer offering to sit down with the staff to discuss the request. Then, 7 months later, Chairman Comer goes on television and said he never got a response back from Hunter Biden, which is flat out false. And that day, Hunter Biden's attorney wrote again to Chairman Comer to say that he did respond. He never heard a response, but that he remains available to have a discussion. So next, without any response from the chairman, you went straight into a subpoena. The subpoena was for testimony, and the witness, Hunter Biden, has put no conditions or limitations on his testimony. There are no limits on the topics. There's no limits on the length of time. He's happy to do it under oath. He has said he would not assert the Fifth Amendment privilege, even though that's available to him. That's in stark contrast to Devin Archer, their star witness, who so narrowly limited the time and scope of his testimony that we could not ask him anything about any of his own criminal conduct. But the only request that Hunter Biden has made is that he wants to give his testimony in public, not behind a closed-door deposition where his transcript wouldn't be released. There's absolutely no certainty or guarantee that there would ever be a public hearing again, and I would bet a lot of money that you will never put him in that witness chair, whether or not he comes in. That's all he wanted, just to speak to the American people. He has not, unlike your dear leader filed a lawsuit to prevent third parties from turning over financial information. In fact, you've received tens of thousands of bank records. The problem you have is not Hunter Biden's cooperation. It's that all of those bank records, which would show any connection between Hunter Biden and his father, if there were any, has zero money going from Hunter Biden to Joe Biden related to any of his business ventures. So your problem is that the evidence doesn't show what you say it does. It's not that he's not cooperating. So that's why we're here today, so that you can change the topic, can claim that there's some kind of obstruction, and therefore Hunter Biden really did do all of these terrible things, and Hunter Biden should be impeached. Oh, wait, who's being impeached here? Now, this is far worse because the chairman, as we've discussed many times, has multiple times offered Hunter Biden to come testify in public. So if you had wanted a closed-door deposition, I don't understand why you would go on TV, Mr. Chairman, and offer for Hunter Biden to come in and testify publicly, whichever he chooses. So why no public hearing? Why won't you have a public hearing? The only request, this is an incredibly cooperative witness. We've all dealt with many witnesses who put a lot of restrictions on their testimony. There's one request of Hunter Biden, which is to speak directly to the American people, not in a closed door to the Republicans who will control the release, the dissemination, and the misinformation from that testimony. Why not? Well, one of your own colleagues went on the House floor last fall and said that this impeachment investigation was, quote, failure theater, unquote. A Republican said that. So the theory here must be, let's avoid the theater part of that and just keep the failure behind closed doors. Last month, Hunter Biden showed up to the Capitol on the day that he was subpoenaed, ready to testify in this hearing room. You refused to take his testimony. That very same afternoon, you went on the House floor to vote for an impeachment resolution on the rationale that you needed to pass a resolution to get more evidence. You reject evidence in the morning, and then you cry foul about no evidence in the afternoon. He's ready to testify, and this is a dangerous precedent you're setting. If every single line in every single subpoena must be adhered to, or you're going to hold in contempt, I know my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who defied subpoenas outright would be very afraid if that became the standard here. And I yield back.
And I'll recognize myself. I oppose this amendment. This amendment claims that Hunter Biden has cooperated with this committee's investigation. How has he cooperated with the investigation if he has not abided by congressional subpoena? Abby Lowell has never discussed scope or logic with us, and we have identified at least 2 checks directly to Joe Biden where we traced the money directly through the Biden influence peddling schemes. That is a fact. We have published evidence. This isn't like Adam Schiff and the Steele dossier where you just make stuff up. We have produced bank records, and bank records don't lie. So Mr. Biden mocked our legitimate congressional impeachment inquiry and flew to D.C. to hang out outside of Congress and did not show his face for a deposition. He is not in compliance. He openly defied a congressional subpoena. Do any other members wish to speak on this amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Mr. Raskin.
I want to yield back to Mr. Goldman. Before I just want to pose a question to you. When you said that there was documented checks involving the president in an influence scheme, are you referring to the auto loan repayment checks between Joe and Hunter Biden?
You mean the Porsche he got from Uzbekistan? Which auto are you?
I don't know what kind of car, but are those the checks that you're referring to?
The checks we're referring to were a check for $200,000 that came through the influence peddling scheme with AmeriCorps Health, and the $40,000 check that came through the influence peddling scheme with China, where I believe Mr. Bobulinski has stated publicly was a company that Joe Biden was supposed to be 10% owner.
Okay, I'll reclaim my time. I think in both cases, I mean, there were a lot of words there, Mr. Chairman, but I think you're referring to the auto loan repayment with Hunter Biden. You're referring to the James Biden repayment. But if you've got documented receipts of foreign governments giving money directly to President Joe Biden, that's an outrageous violation of the Emoluments Clause, like the $7.8 million that Donald Trump pocketed while he was president, which for some reason you guys don't care about because you think the Constitution only applies to Democrats and not to Donald Trump. Because hey, that's an identifying characteristic of an authoritarian political party. It's got a charismatic leader whose word is considered above the Constitution, above the rule of law. You refuse to accept the results of democratic elections that don't go your way if you're an authoritarian party, and then you refuse to disavow or you embrace political violence as an instrument for obtaining and maintaining political power. So you guys didn't like when President Biden said that your party under Donald Trump has fallen into semi-fascist ways of operation. If the shoe semi-fits, you semi-wear it, okay? Now, I'd like to yield back to Mr. Goldman.
Would the gentleman yield to a question?
Well, yeah, I'll take a quick question.
I just want to clarify. We have a wire that went directly from CEFC, which banks have identified as a state-owned entity from China. That this wire went from CEFC to Hunter Biden, then to Joe Biden for $40,000.
Okay.
Joe Biden has been directly implicated in the family influence peddling scheme at least 2 times.
No, you haven't.
You have not.
I've not ever seen that.
You have not
No,
produced
read the bank memo.
You have not
The
produced that.
40,000 is for Jim Biden.
No. The 200,000 is from Jim Biden. The 40,000 is from Hunter Biden.
All right, but please produce the documentation.
We have it. We have 4 bank memorandums.
Give it to the members of this committee and
4 bank memorandums.
Okay, I'll reclaim my time, Mr.
There has never been a more substantive.
I'm saving my time. You go ahead, but I'm saving my time.
In the 7 years I've been in Congress.
All right, let me say this. The Democrats undertook a serious investigation despite every effort by the chairman to undermine it, and we determined there were $7.8 million documented receipts from foreign governments to Donald Trump. You guys don't care about that. That's unfortunate. But if you've got
Will the ranking member yield?
Yeah, we will in just a moment. Let me make my point, okay? If you have documented receipts of foreign governments writing checks or giving credit card payments to Joe Biden, show it to us. We've been at this for a year now. We haven't seen anything. Then we show you in our more than 100-page report the documented receipts of money going to Donald Trump, and you don't care about it. In other words, you don't care about the principle that our government leaders should not be on the take from foreign governments. That's outrageous. Because I will oppose any government official of any political party who's on the take with money from foreign governments, and I hope you would join me in that. And yet we've shown it to you, and yet you guys don't care about it.
He is such a liar.
I mean, that's just unfathomable to me. Now, at least the Trump family has responded to it.
Well,
I mean, they're very nervous about it. You know what Trump said? The Trump's people say,
Those
well,
of you
he
who have
didn't
been
take
watching these
his
for the past
$400,000
years,
government salary. You know what?
this is-
That's the
this is
only thing
rich.
you're allowed to take is your salary from Americans, not money from corrupt Saudi monarchs who ordered the assassination